All this work that we're doing, brothers, for this ministry, eventually is going to pay off. You better believe it, man. It's going to pay off like you'll never believe. Okay? And by the way, we're the highest value male on this planet. The men of the Lord, the men of this truth, the hopeful elect of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, the highest value male there is. And this world will see this, man. As a matter of fact, let me segue to the scripture since I made that bold statement. Let me back it up. The greatest thing you can have is this knowledge of this truth, man. There is nothing more greater. This is the highest value there is. This is the most expensive money there is, this knowledge, this truth. 1 John, the 3rd chapter, the 1st verse, it says, "Beloved, what manner of love the Father hath bestowed upon us." Let me read that again. Did you catch that? Behold, what manner of love the Father hath bestowed upon us. Giving us this knowledge, giving us this truth, giving us an insight to the future world. Okay? That we should be called the sons of God. Another title for the sons of God is Israelites, princes of power. And this knowledge, this truth ensures that we're the son of God. Just like the son of God. Didn't he get the truth? Didn't he get the knowledge? Yahweh Shai. Well, there you go. And we're following right in his footsteps, man. Okay, let's read it again. Behold, what manner of love the Father hath bestowed upon us, that we should be called the sons of God. Therefore the world knoweth us not. As it stands right now, the world don't know us. But they're getting ready to. They're getting ready to be introduced to us. Because the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, through his Son, Yahweh Shai, is going to magnify us. Okay? And he's going to magnify his Son. His Son is going to get magnified first, and then us. Okay? Therefore the world knoweth us not, because it knew him not. There you go. Behold, or beloved, rather, now are we the sons of God, because we have this truth, we have this knowledge, right? And it doth not yet appear what we shall be. To who? To the world. But we know that when he shall appear, and that's what we're waiting for Yahweh shall appear, crack them skies with the angels, right? The chariots, the whole nine. We shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. And the scriptures tell us that Yahweh Shai is coming in great power and glory. So when Yahweh Shai comes, he's going to magnify us, man. He's going to magnify us, okay? And we wait for that.
Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Yahweh Shai, who hath blessed us with all spiritual blessings in heavenly places in Yahweh Shai, according as he hath chosen us in him before the foundation of the world, that we should be holy and without blame before him in love, having predestinated us unto the adoption of children by Yahweh Shai to himself, according to the good pleasure of his will, to the praise of the glory of his grace, wherein he hath made us accepted in the beloved.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Kampadash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS, whom rule well, teach well, being great example towards younger brothers, and peace and blessing, salutations to hopefully out there pushing his word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopefully the believers, the listeners who may have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah. All right, and this is, the part 2, all right, of Satan shall be loosed from his prison. Okay, and this time we're going to go into the fall of Grenada, all right, and deal with the Conquistadors, okay, what that led to, all right. Yesterday we did the Ottoman Empire, all right, the fall of Constantinople, which was the end of, the Eastern Roman Empire ran by Jake, So I just wanted to do it back to back, so it'd be fresh, on our minds. You can put the two together, this history, they run together. One thing about it, history is like a big puzzle, and you just put the pieces together and all run together, and so we're gonna go into it. I'm gonna get a couple of precepts, then I got some videos, and we'll go from there. Lord will, this is edifying to you brothers, all right, and you sisters watching. Now let's start off with two scriptures, okay, because you get Job 9:24. All right, so Job 9:24 said, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covered the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? Okay, Esau, Edom, okay, is the wicked that the Bible speaks of, and the earth was given into his hand, okay, pursuant to the blessing, all right, he received from Isaac, okay, the fatness of the earth. But he would do it by what? He will gain the fatness of the earth, through the sword, okay, through constant bloodshed. All right, through rape, robbery, and murder. All right, and then he covered the faces of the judges, okay, which Renaissance Christianity is responsible for that, okay, because that infamous picture of whom they call the Messiah, Jesus, you know, that's a product of Renaissance art, okay, which is Cesare Borgia, okay, the son of Rodriguez Borgia, okay, the sixth Pope of Rome, okay, and these things started happening when these Edomites started getting in power, okay, because you go into the what they call the Holy Roman Empire, okay, you had Jake, pretty much into Christianity, which it was infused with paganism, and when Esau, when he took down, okay, when Ottoman Turks took down the Roman Empire, okay, you had Edomites, that was practicing Christians, and they, because you gotta think, as a ruler, you want peace within your realm, okay, and they know people are controlled, all right, by religion, so Esau, he plays the part, whatever he needs to do to deceive, so he played the part of the Christian, but he put his wicked twist on it, which, that paganism, Christianity was off anyway, okay, well, Esau just put a more, all right, wicked twist on the Christianity, okay, and it came over here as the Conquistadors, and we're going to go into all these things, I got 3 videos, probably about 20 something minute worth of video out of all 3 of them that I want to get, and just, hit the main points. All right. So let's go here to Psalms 75. All right. It's the book Psalms 75 and 4. Okay. It says, I said unto the fools, deal not foolishly, and to the wicked, lift not up the horn. Lift not up your horn on high, speak not with a stiff neck. Okay. And that what you see happening, all right, Esau, Edom, the wicked, because remember the earth was given into the hand of the wicked. So the Bible is warning him not to deal foolishly or lift up the horn, which is his power. Pretty much be, within his power being his pride. Okay, exalted, lofty, as the scriptures say. Okay. Speak not with a stiff neck. And this is what the devil is doing, because within his rulership, he's in the all-out rebellion against righteousness, man. Okay. And we're going to what? The birth of this wicked empire. When Esau starts to establish himself in the earth, man. And after the fall of Grenada, we're going to really see, this man, branch out in the earth, man. And push forward, his wickedness, man. Okay? This is Psalm 75 and 6. It said, for promotion coming neither from the east, nor from the west, all right, nor from the south. But the Most High is the judge. He put him down one and set up another. Okay? And the Renaissance period was a time where Esau being set up. Okay, but now when the fall, now when the time, all right, that this man is going to fall, he's going to be put down. All right, but we're going to deal with him being set up in power. And one thing about it, when prophecy, all right, is with you, all right, you can't lose. Okay, and that should motivate us knowing what we know. Okay, when prophecy is for you, you can't lose. You know, and you know, as we watch these videos, you're going to see these things how the devil just, you know, he had favor, you know, to come in power. Now, let me cue up the first one. All right, so this is going to be Queen, all right, Isabella, okay, of Spain, and King Ferdinand of Aragon, okay. This is pretty much, all right, the monarchy, you know, that would take down Grenada and dispatch the conquistadors after Grenada fell. Okay, that same year, the conquistadors, okay, would be dispatched, beginning with Christopher Columbus. Okay, Christopher Columbus, which they, you know, he's an icon in Esau's history, but he was pretty much just a do boy, okay, for King Ferdinand, okay, of Aragon, and Queen Isabella. Okay, and he came back with the report, and they would send out more conquistadors. Okay, but it was after the fall of Grenada, so we're gonna let it play, you know, and we'll go into it. Uh, yeah.
At the close of the 15th century, Fernando II, King of Aragon, and his wife, Isabel, Queen of Castile and Leon, waged a decades-long war to subdue the final Muslim portion of Spain, the Emirate of Grenada. For Queen Isabel, this was a deeply meaningful crusade. Her ancestor, Saint Fernando, King of Castile and Leon, had conducted a grand campaign to subdue Cordoba and Sevilla. Now, Isabel saw herself as completing his work, bringing the territory of Grenada for the first time in 8 centuries under Christian rule. The king and queen began their crusade in 1482. The Emirate of Grenada, ruled by the Nasrid dynasty, was small but well situated in the mountainous southeast. To conquer Grenada's well-defended cities would be a grueling and perilous task. From Rome, the Pope offered his support, declaring the campaign a crusade with spiritual merit. Within Grenada itself, unity did not always prevail. Grenada's ruler, the Emir Boabdil, had to contend with rebellious factions and even his own family members. However, the threat from Aragon and Castile did often forge a unity of purpose among Grenada's Muslims, even when Boabdil's leadership proved less than decisive. Boabdil's greatest rival would be his own uncle, El Zagal, a courageous and competent military commander who inspired loyalty and bravery among the Muslim fighting men. By the late 14th
It would buffer now, you know, but And also, I want to make the point, as you see how, the Moors was Islam, which they were Jakes, okay? And you had the Ottoman Empire, they was, Islamic as well. And then it goes to those Islamic caliphates, that pretty much had different dynasties in their region, from around 650, AD, to about 1150 AD. Ishmael, had a pretty long run in their region. He converted a lot of people, to Islam. Ishmael had, had some dynasties over there, and and that's the thing about it. Who's ever in power, they get to push their belief. They get to enforce their belief. Okay, so you had Ishmael with them caliphates, and with the Moors. Pretty much, they started off as a mercenary group from northern Africa, and they was left over there pretty much to be a garrison, for the Umayyad Caliphate over there in the Iberian Peninsula, which is Portugal and Spain. Okay, but Jake did what they do best, man. They formed the empire, the Moorish Empire, in their region, with Spain. Okay, but what you had, them Edomites. I say they was coming back in power of their time, and they were just chipping away, at these European, monarchies. All right, that had been ruling. Okay, I might have to restart it, refresh it, and get it back on. Tripping.
There's nothing more powerful than you making your thing happen, doing business on your terms.
During the campaign, a crusade with spiritual merit. Within Grenada itself, unity did not always prevail. Grenada's ruler, the Emir Boabdil, had to contend with rebellious factions and even his own family members. However, the threat from Aragon and Castile did often forge a unity of purpose among Grenada's Muslims, even when Boabdil's leadership proved less than decisive. Boabdil's greatest rival would be his own uncle, El Zagal, a courageous and competent military commander who inspired loyalty and bravery among the Muslim fighting men. By the late 1480s, Fernando and Isabel had made much progress, but El Zagal remained their greatest opponent in the crusade. While Boabdil ruled from Grenada, El Zagal held the powerful coastal fortress of Almeria, one of the key strongholds still in Muslim hands. In 1488, Fernando and Isabel targeted the port city of Almeria, the power base of their greatest opponent, El Zagal. Although Fernando's army was able to capture the fortress of Vera, the city of Almeria itself, bolstered by El Zagal's generalship, successfully resisted his assault, and the year ended with no major conquest. Meanwhile, Fernando and Isabel were coming to be recognized all across Europe. The Italian scholar Peter Martyr praised their rule and the prosperity and peace they'd brought to their people. The highest ranks of European nobility sought Spanish marriage alliances with both the Holy Roman Emperor and the King of England, asking that daughters of Isabel and Fernando be given to their heirs in marriage. In 1489, Fernando and Isabel moved their court to the mountain city of Jaén, just north of Grenada, from whence they launched another army to continue hammering at El Zagal's power base around Almeria. Meanwhile, the bulk of the summer was spent advancing on the Moorish fortress of Baza, one of El Zagal's important strongholds. Baza was situated in a great forest, which itself was filled with hidden fortifications. The armies of Castile and Aragon essentially had to clear the bulk of the forest to safely invest the city, and this wasn't completed until the fall. After months more of besiegement, Baza finally surrendered on December 4. With Baza fallen, El Zagal was essentially penned into the coastal city of Almeria. The stern old Moorish warrior had put all of his energy into defending Baza, and he recognized when he was beaten. He offered to surrender Almeria. On December 23, 1489, the tall Moorish chieftain, clad all in black, received Fernando in the city, where he hailed him as king conqueror and relinquished control over Almeria. As the city's chief mosque was converted to a cathedral, El Zagal boarded a ship and sailed for North Africa, where he ended his days. Throughout the Grenada War, El Zagal had been Fernando and Isabel's greatest enemy and a courageous champion of the Muslims. Now his domain was conquered, and he himself was gone. There was nothing left to capture but Grenada itself and her dependent fortresses. In January of 1490, Fernando and Isabel wrote to Boabdil asking that he avoid further violence by surrendering Grenada peacefully. The emir promised to do so, though he delayed actually handing over the city for months. In fact, Boabdil was not entirely free, for there were powerful factions within Grenada urging him to resist, to live up to the spirit of Spain's early Arab conquerors by fighting to the end. Thus, Boabdil sallied from the last important Moorish city in 1490 and made a surprise assault on the castles of Alhandin and Salobreña. This was a stunning and bold move, though Fernando quickly repulsed Moorish troops from both castles and in retaliation heavily raided the Grenadan countryside. That November, Fernando and Isabel escorted their eldest daughter, Princess Isabel, to Portugal to join her betrothed, Prince Afonso, who was so eager to meet his new bride that he broke the usual protocol, which held that a groom should not see his bride before the wedding. After their marriage, the couple was blissfully happy, but tragically, Afonso died in a horseback riding accident the following July. His young wife was devastated. That tragedy still lay in the future in April 1491, when King Fernando and Queen Isabel, along with their son Prince Juan, and an army some 80,000 strong, larger than any in the history of the Reconquista, set out for Grenada, intent on reducing that city once and for all. As the army set in for the siege, a permanent military base, Santa Fe, was built near Grenada, and the Duke of Cadiz defeated the Moors in a skirmish outside the city. However, in August, news arrived of the death of Princess Isabel's husband, Prince Afonso of Portugal, and the news devastated the royal family. That same month, Princess Isabel rejoined her family at Santa Fe, inconsolable in her sorrow, insisting that she would never remarry and would wear only coarse wool for the rest of her life. Queen Isabel, always close to her eldest daughter, was deeply distressed by her child's sorrow, but as ever maintained a serene bearing, never showing her sadness. She believed that it was absolutely necessary that she maintain poise for the good of the army's morale. Meanwhile, the Christian army pressed the siege relentlessly. By September, it was clear that Grenada could not hold out much longer. Boabdil insisted to the Catholic monarchs that he intended to surrender, but that he needed time to accustom his people to the notion, for Grenada was still filled with brave warriors who wanted to fight to the end. Boabdil asked the king and queen's representative, the knight Gonzalo of Cordoba, for 6 months until Grenada was handed over. Isabel and Fernando absolutely refused to this. Finally, by November, Boabdil realized he could hold out no longer. With snow beginning to dust the Sierra Nevada, Boabdil agreed to surrender at the close of January 1492. The Muslims of Grenada would be granted the right to practice their religion and live in the city unmolested, or they could vacate Grenada for Africa. Once he'd come to terms with the Catholic king and queen, Boabdil found his position in Grenada untenable. The enraged bellicose Moorish faction was plotting against his life. He wrote again to Isabel and Fernando, asking that he be allowed to abdicate on January 2nd, and that a contingent of Christian soldiers enter the city the night before to guard his own life. Fernando and Isabel agreed to this.
Before I took the Google IT support certificate, I didn't have any background with IT, and now I'm working full-time as a service desk.
At dawn, on January 2nd, the ancient gate of Grenada, the last fortification in Iberia to hold out against Christian Castile and Aragon, was opened to a party of Spanish knights under the leadership of Gutierre de Cardenas, one of Isabel's most trusted commanders. Boabdil himself met them, placing in Gutierre's hand a document in which he formally renounced the city. Gutierre's first act was to have an altar raised in the middle of the Alhambra, where a priest in his company at once said Mass. Gutierre's men took possession of the Alhambra, 3 cannon shots were fired, announcing that Grenada was in Christian hands. Now, the whole of the Christian army marched out of the camp at Santa Fe toward Grenada. By 3 o'clock, they arrived, the king and the queen at their head. They and their nobles were garbed in their finest attire, jewels, silks, and brocade cloth, with the soldiers' armor and weapons brightly polished. Fernando rode ahead, Isabel behind him with their children. Boabdil stepped forward and passed the keys to the city into Fernando's hands, then submitted himself before the King of Aragon. Fernando passed the keys to Isabel, who handed them to Prince Juan, who passed them to the Count of Tendilla, the man selected by the king and queen to govern Grenada. Hernando de Talavera, Isabel's confessor, was named the city's bishop. The royal family now rode into Grenada, followed by the whole of the army. They were greeted by a procession of Christians, former prisoners in Grenada, now freed by Isabel and Fernando. Isabel received the Christians with great joy, then had them immediately led to Santa Fe, where they were fed and bestowed with gifts. Hernando de Talavera climbed to the Alhambra's high tower, where he raised a cross and cried out, Ave Cruz, Spes Unica, hail to the cross, our only hope. Next, the king and queen's banner, along with the flag of Santiago, were raised over the citadel. Trumpets blasted, cannons fired, and the Christians spread throughout the city, singing joyously. Meanwhile, Grenada's Moorish population watched in quiet silence and horror as their city, the last city of Al-Andalus, passed into Christian power. For both sides, it was a moment of profound emotion. Boabdil himself, along with his household and a melancholy party of Moors who would not remain in a Christian kingdom, departed Grenada. When he reached the edge of the mountains, he turned to take a final look at the shining city of his forefathers, tears in his eyes. His mother, Zoraia, according to some sources, remarked, "You will weep like a woman for what you could not defend like a man."
So there was the fall of Grenada, all right, which was in 1492, okay, January, all right, and then you will have Christopher Columbus, all right, and these niggas didn't waste no time when Grenada fell, okay. Let's see. So now we're gonna go into the Conquistadors, okay, because this. Let's see. All right, and when Christopher Columbus came, he was sent, he was financed by King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella to come to the Americas, okay, that same year. All right. And his first voyage was August 3rd, 1492. Okay, so 7 months later, all right, after Grenada fell, Christopher Columbus sailed to the Americas, all right, and he came back with the report, like, look, we can enslave these people. They so naive, they so friendly, they, we can we can enslave these people. They got gold, okay. So he came back with their report to the throne, and then you will have the conquistadors set out, sent out, okay, to go terrorize Jake, man. But it's all scripture. We're going to get it. But let's watch this dealing with the conquistadors, okay. And then you will have, because it was a spirit of the Apostle Har, went into it. The apostles went into it on the block where you have the what they call the papal the Papal Bull of 1493. Okay, now when you go into it, let's get there first, and then we'll get into the doctrine of discovery, and then we'll go to the Conquistadors. And it should tie in all together. So you have what you call the the Papal Bull, okay, 1493, which is just 1 year later. When Grenada fell, these devils just took off. It was their time. And one thing about it, the Lord, He'll speed up, okay, prophecy, man. Okay, now you hear the term doctrine of discovery. Okay, so let me share this. Let me blow it up. So. Let's just read a little bit about this real quick. And we go to the other video. So you have the doctrine of discovery, okay, which pretty much a decree, because they looked at the Pope as he, was the mediator on earth, which that's off, okay, because Yahweh Shah is the mediator in the heavens, and right, and so pretty much they would look at the Pope as like a mediator, and he will have authority, okay, in the earth to set decrees, that are to be honored within Christianity. Now, let's read it. It says the Papal Bull or Inter Cartiri, issued by Pope Alexander VI on May 4th, 1493, played a central role in the Spanish conquest of the New World. The document supported Spain's strategy to ensure its exclusive rights to the lands discovered by Columbus the previous year. It established a demarcation line 100 leagues west of Azores and Cape Verde Islands and assigned Spain the exclusive right to acquire territorial possessions and to trade in all lands west of that line. All others were forbidden to approach the land west of the line without special license from the rulers of Spain. This effectually gave Spain a monopoly on the lands in the New World, and that's why you had, Dominican Republic. Okay, you had the, South Central America, all Spanish, speaking people now, which are Israelites. Okay, because Spain, pretty much they jumped out there first. All right, of the Edomites coming over to the New World. Okay. And it says the bull stated that any land not inhabited by a Christian was available to be discovered, claimed and exploited by Christian rulers, and declared that the Catholic faith and the Christian religion be exalted and be everywhere increased and spread, that the health of souls cared for, and that barbarous nations be overthrown and brought to the faith itself. That this doctrine of discovery became the basis of all European claims in the Americas, as well as the foundation of the United States Western expansion. Okay, so these devils took this doctrine of discovery and ran with it, man. Started with the Spanish, then the Portugal, okay, then the French, then the British. Okay, so let's get this quick video. Think and they're gonna explain it some more. Okay, so Grenada fell January 1492, January 1st, 1492. Columbus came to the New World in August the 3rd, the same year, 1492. And the doctrine of discovery, okay, went out about because Columbus came back in October. Okay, I'm gonna say Columbus came back in October. No, Columbus. Let's see when he came back. So Columbus, let's see when he came back for a voyage. Okay, he came back March 15th, 1493, and the papal, okay, which is the Doctrine of Discovery, came out in May, and Columbus came back again, okay, that same year in 1493, you know, to pretty much claim land for the throne of Spain. All right. So now let's get into the doctrine of discovery. All right. But remember, when Grenada fell, things started moving, you know, extremely fast. You know.
In May of this year, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau visited Pope Francis at the Vatican. At the heart of his audience with the Pope was a request. Trudeau asked Pope Francis to issue a public apology for the Catholic Church's role in establishing and running residential schools in Canada. Such an apology is among the calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. But the troubled history of the Catholic Church and Indigenous people stretches back centuries. The words were written more than 500 years ago. Any non-Christian people discovered by European explorers were to be vanquished and subdued. Direct quote, subjugated and brought to the faith. And it didn't stop with explorers. The Vatican directives became the basis of centuries of discriminatory laws in both Canada and the United States. Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz is a historian and activist in San Francisco. She has worked with the International Indigenous Movement for more than 40 years. Hello, Professor. Welcome.
Thank you for inviting me, Mary.
So the Pope issues a papal bull being an old word referring to the lead seal on the document, and it's called the Doctrine of Discovery. We've put a few lines from the doctrine on tape just to get a sense of what this is. Here it is.
Among other works, well pleasing to the divine majesty and cherished of our heart, this assuredly ranks highest. That in our times, especially the Catholic faith and the Christian religion be exalted and be everywhere increased and spread. That the health of souls be cared for, and that barbarous nations be overthrown and brought to the faith itself.
That barbarous nations be overthrown. The Doctrine of Discovery, when you read portions of it, it sounds like a directive from the church to convert and or slaughter the inhabitants of the new lands. Is that overstating it?
Well, in the case of Columbus, because Columbus did say that these people had some attributes, they would be very easy to conquer.
And then they sent, with Cortez, when they sent the big colonizing venture in 1518, De las Casas, the Dominican friar, was on board to determine whether or not the people they were going to conquer had souls or not and could be converted. Because if they didn't have souls, if they were savages, they couldn't be converted. So they then had 60 years of debates in Spain, legal debates about whether or not the indigenous Americans had souls. You have to understand that the church and the state both were colonizers, and they each had economic interests. So they wanted the labor of the native people. And for them to get that, they had to have, they had to convince the Holy Roman Empire, the Pope, that these people had souls.
In the minds of the monarchies, in the minds of church authorities, would this have been more than a quest for land? Are we talking about a quest for souls as well, just to find people and convert them to Christianity?
No, not really. It was a quest for domination, looting, taking the wealth, administering. Settler colonialism really came was an invention of the British later on, who carried the doctrine of discovery for their own, but they in North America, their North American colonies, created a settler colonialism. But it definitely was to control those people and to the right to take all their resources and any of their land that they did wish to take.
So the doctrine became the foundation of a number of laws in the United States and in Canada over the centuries.
Absolutely.
Quite recently in Canada, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission found that the inspiration for residential schools could be traced back to the doctrine of discovery. It's that far-reaching?
Absolutely, that they had the right to break up families, children. This was true of the Spanish, and the mission systems they developed. They separated the families, separated the men and the women. They could do anything they wanted with the people, because not only did they own the land, but the people, their labor, everything. So it's completely entrenched in the legal system of both countries, and of course throughout Latin America as well. This is the basis for the boarding schools, the basis for genocide.
What do you think is the spiritual cost when the laws of the land regard you as less than human?
Well, it's, the moral fabric of the whole society is corrupted. Of course, the main victims are the people who are so regarded. The land is taken in order to make plantation land agribusiness worked by slave labor, but those slave bodies are also bought and sold and used as collateral, as exchange. And then the land, which cannot be separated from people or all other living things from the indigenous point of view, is broken down into small plots that are commodities, sold on a piece of paper as commodities. So just as the slave is sold as on a piece of paper, but it's a real body and it's real land. So we have a kind of analogy, between the land as a body of the native people and the body of slaves. But I think that applies also in Canada, where the people are removed from their relationship with what is a part of their body, and that is the land and the resources and all the other living things. So that's deeply traumatic and cannot be patched up without restoration of land, particularly sacred sites that have been taken very purposely to kill the religions. So, and then we have the policing thing. You have your Royal Canadian Mounties in Canada, and you have the Texas Rangers and all these rangers, these different Tennessee Rangers under Jackson. And these are the kind of off-the-shelf enforcers who have really no controls on them. Often they don't even, at least the rangers, don't even have a code of behavior. I think we understand the oppressive policing because of the slave patrols under the Cotton Kingdom and African Americans, but we understand less about the police violence, the numbers of incarcerated First Nations people and just killings, police killings and torture and all kinds of things that also create that trauma. But I do think that boarding schools overall is the one uppermost, in North America, unique to North America colonization, that is an institution that it's so wonderful that the First Nations people in Canada have done a thorough investigation of the boarding school system. It's just getting started here, and it doesn't really have the kind of support that First Nations were able to garner to get the government committed to it. But there's no real reconciliation without restitution.
Well, you've
The restitution gonna come through your house shot. Okay. Now, as you heard it, okay, the doctrine of discovery, it made the indigenous people, all right, to the northern tribes, less okay than human. Okay, and this is the Christianity that niggas defend today. You see, you have Jake that follow camps around, pop up to the camp and want to defend, all right, Christianity. Well, this is the basis of Christianity, man. Slaughterhouse. Okay? Convert or be slaughtered. You see? A matter of fact, get the discovery, it don't matter who's on the land. If you're not a Christian, we taking that. Okay? You see? And this is the plantation Christianity that niggas defend so vehemently. Niggas fight tooth and nail for this Christianity, man. Okay? And all these things were prophesied, to happen to us as a people, for our disobedience, man, because, the Lord, let's get a few quick precepts. Okay? Because our homeland is Israel anyway. Okay? But we were scattered, all right, due to prophecy. All right, and we was conquered due to prophecy, man. So let's get that. Because us being scattered and removed from their land is a punishment within itself. Okay? We supposed to be in Israel, okay, ruling in righteousness, man. But disobedience had us scattered throughout the earth, man. All right, this is the book of Deuteronomy 28:64 says, "And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people from one end of the earth even unto the other, and thou shalt serve other gods which neither thy father, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone." Because you had the indigenous people, okay, which was the northern tribes, they got into, idolatry, which they picked up heavily from who? The Assyrians, man. Okay? But us being scattered is a curse within itself. Okay? And you go here to Leviticus, the 26th chapter, All right, this is Leviticus. All right, penalties of disobedience. 26:14 said, "But if you will not hearken unto me, and will not do all these commandments, and if you shall despise my statutes, or if your soul abhor my judgment, so that you will not do all my commandments, but you break my covenant, I also will do this unto you. I will even appoint over you terror, consumption, and the burning egg," which is a disease, okay, a fever. All right, because another thing, the conquistadors came with that smallpox, man. But all these things were prophesied, man, for disobedience. It said, "They shall consume the eyes and cause sorrow of heart, and you shall sow your seed in vain, for your enemies shall eat it." Okay? And how did they do that, man? Taking the land. Okay? Because all the you know, the farms, you know, hey, Esau came and took all that over, man. Okay? And he didn't just take the farms, he took over the people. You see? So that labor that went into tilling the land and, you know, having the land, you know, tilled and okay, the orchards and different things that they had going on, that was for Esau to come take, man. Okay? Oh, come on, man. Come on, man. All right. So let's go here. Let's keep going. Get one more. Yep, this is Leviticus 26 and 25, and it says, "And I will bring a sword upon you that shall avenge the cord of my covenant. And when you are gathered together within your cities, I will send pestilence among you, and you shall be delivered in the hand of your enemy." Okay? And now we're finna go into those conquistadors. But this was, maybe about 15 years later. Okay, when they, the Spanish went all in, man. Okay?
Hey, you ever seen a wealthy person or a wealthy family or a jet owner? Like, I got a jet, I'm sorry, You ever done
because of their exploits and their leader, Cortez.
All right, so they're just gonna go into conquistadors and their history. Okay, this is when they really, started to just go all out. The Spanish just went all out, colonized. Okay, and there's a brother Jonathan Boquar 144K, colonized as a country that sends settlers to a place and establish political control over it. A person who settles among and establishes political control over the indigenous people of the area. All right, and Esau has done this throughout the earth, man. Okay, he did in China, India, Africa. Okay, Australia. You see, he's done this everywhere, man. Okay, and especially over here in the Western Hemisphere, man. All right, so now let's go into conquistadors. We'll get a couple more, then we'll close out. But I'm gonna let this play and they give you the rundown of the conquistadors, man, and what they was into and what they had going on, man. You know.
From their unyielding thirst for gold to their destruction of the Aztecs and Incas. Stay tuned to number 1 to find out 10 crazy facts about the Spanish conquistadors. Number 10. Who made up the group? The conquistadors are one of the most famous and infamous groups in the history of the world because of their exploits. And their leader, Cortez, is etched into history as well. But there is one stigma or stereotype that is often associated with the group, mainly that they were all Spanish. Cortez was Spanish, and much of the group was Spanish in birth. However, the whole group itself wasn't. After all, the conquistadors traveled quite a bit, and this allowed them to go to many new countries, and in those countries were people who were willing to become part of their crusade. To that end, 2 of the most famous conquistadors, not named Cortez, were Greek and German. They were very happy to torture, maim, and kill in the name of the crusade. Not surprisingly, not only were their demises pretty bad themselves, one of them wasn't even brought back to his own country for burial. He was left to rot in an unmarked grave. Not the heroic end they were probably looking for. Number 9. The quest for gold. All crusades need purpose, and the conquistadors were no different. They were actually motivated by Christopher Columbus, whose adventures in the New World proved that there were things in these undiscovered lands that were ripe for the taking, if they were willing to brave the dangers. Cortez most certainly was, and so he went and gathered up an army and sailed to South America. Their biggest motivation was gold, which would be a motivating factor for many explorers to come, and they made their way for South America where they knew the gold would be. This started a long and bloody crusade, one that ended two different empires via the Aztec and Incan cultures. But to be clear, the conquistadors didn't just take the gold, they were also rather clever sometimes. They could tell that the native people weren't fully knowledgeable about who they were, and by that token could be tricked. So sometimes they went to the people and said that they had a disease of heart. And how do you cure such a disease? Why, with gold, of course. Not everyone fell for this, obviously, so they did the more basic measures then. But some did fall for their different ploys, making their conquests even greater. Number 8. Technology versus numbers. Before we talk about the modern technologies of the Spanish, take a moment to like this video and join the Zero to Hero community by subscribing below. Don't forget to click that little notification bell too, that will make sure you're always notified of our newest videos. As noted, the conquistadors made their names by dominating not one, but two ancient cultures, and they did it with brutal efficiency. But that begs the question, why were they that efficient? What was it about the conquistadors that made them so devastating a fighting force? Well, the answer is not their numbers. In fact, Cortez had a smaller army in both of his campaigns against the Aztecs and the Incans. But what he lacked in numbers, he made up for with armor and weapons. The advancements of the Spanish people were much greater than that of the Aztecs or Incans. The Spanish had not only developed cannons, but still armor and crossbows that could far outpace the basic bow and arrows that the native people had. Plus, because of the armor, which covered their bodies and head, they could take greater beatings and keep going, whereas a single bolt from a crossbow could easily take out any of the native people. Plus, while primitive, they did have muskets, and they used them to strike fear into the natives, causing them to panic and flee.
Rule number 3, you can't get rich slow. When I owned 100 houses.
7. How did they get?
And pretty much, Esau, the most I had Esau like a god to the Aztec and Incas, man, which was his two, major empires, of the northern tribes, in the New World. Okay, it was a point to where, they were like, we can't kill this nigga, man. They looked at Esau down there like he was immortal, man, because it took so much to kill one of them, man. Because they had, their steel. The Most High allowed them to be advanced, beyond the Incas and Aztecs for a purpose, man. Because this was the Lord getting that Jake, man. Okay? It must be for the sake of prophecy, man. All right?
They get so ruthless. The main motivation for going to the New World was to find treasure. But as many in the modern era will note, wanting to find more treasure and having the stomach to continue finding treasure when things turn sour are two totally different things. The conquistadors are revered for their strength, determination, and ability to push through things no matter the odds. But how did they get that way? Well, before they set off on their journey, Spain was a part of the Italian Wars, which lasted over 60 years. This experience granted most of the members of the Cortez party with the ability to stare down the barrel of a fight and not blink. Not to mention, they were used to being undermanned and sometimes outgunned, and yet they pushed through. This was one of the biggest hurdles of their crusade. They weren't able to bring in more men, yet they didn't care. They knew they could get the job done with the men they had, and that experience and determination is worth more than gold to many. So through sheer will and grit, they blasted through South America, and the world has never been the same. Number 6. The Cousins Cortez. When talking about the Spanish conquistadors, the name that most people think of immediately is Hernán Cortés, for he was the one who led the charge against the Aztec Empire and defeated its leader Montezuma in brutal fashion. Though Montezuma's revenge did get some payback. But another key man of the group, one who went and conquered the Incan Empire, was Francisco Pizarro. The crazy thing about this, though, was that the two conquerors were actually cousins. Distant cousins, mind you, but cousins nonetheless. Talk about fighting with your family, am I right? Cortés was ruthless, and during his conquest of the Aztecs, he let nothing get in his way, even burning down temples and homes to prove his point. Pizarro, meanwhile, had 4 brothers with him on the conquest, and they were the ones who took down the Incans and in the process got the nickname of the Mafia of the Conquistadors. Either way though, this family meant business, and they got that business done. Number 5, 80%. There's no doubt that Cortés and the conquistadors had a big impact on South America, but what some people don't realize is just how big that impact really was. You see, before the conquistadors came, South America had a large population that had adapted to just about everything that the land threw at them. But when the conquistadors came, they didn't just bring weapons, they brought diseases too. A lot of people passed away simply because their immune systems weren't adapted to the diseases brought over from the Old World, which is very similar to what happened during Christopher Columbus's journey to the New World. But obviously, a lot of people passed away because Cortés and his crew were just plain fine with taking out as many people as they thought they could. Numerous massacres were done just because of certain beliefs that the conquistadors had, and not religious beliefs, mind you, but false claims and statements about uprisings and rebellions. By the time a century had passed since the arrival of the conquistadors, 80% of the native population had been wiped out. Number 4, the distribution of gold. So, the conquistadors went to try and conquer South America and beyond because of gold, right? And let me tell you, they found a lot of gold and were able to convince, trick, or straight up take the gold from the native people. So that begs the question, how much did each conquistador get for his work? That honestly depends on which army you're talking about, Pizarro's or Cortés's. Pizarro had a very fair mind when it came to treating his men well. After raiding tens of thousands of pounds of gold from the Incan people, he gave 45 pounds of gold to each soldier and 90 pounds of silver. Just in gold, that's around $800,000 in modern value. So imagine what that had been worth back then. And the silver would have had less value, but still worth a lot. As for Cortés, well, he was a pretty greedy guy. So much so that he held big cuts of the gold for himself and his officers, as well as to the King of Spain. So the soldiers got a mere pittance compared to the others. It is even said that Cortés may have hid large amounts of the gold so that nobody could get to it. Always try and work for the more generous guy. That's the lesson here. Number 3, horsepower. And I do mean horsepower literally here, as one of the biggest advantages that the conquistadors had over the Aztecs wasn't just that their weapons and armor were superior, it's that they had something else that their foes hadn't seen before. Horses. Think about it. Do you see horses that often in South America? No, because they didn't exist naturally there for a very long time. So imagine now that there's an alien force trying to conquer your land and they're riding these beasts that you've never seen before. How do you think that's going to go over? Then you need to remember that the conquistadors were trained on their horses as cavalry. As such, they were not only well equipped to fight the Aztecs, but they could charge them with a speed and ferocity that must have seemed godlike to the Aztecs. True, the horses could be killed, but their looks, especially with the riders on them, and the sounds they made was something to fear. Number 2, help from the locals. You might think that because they conquered the Aztec nation, that the conquistadors did it single-handedly, especially given their tactical prowess. But that's not exactly true. In fact, although the Aztecs were powerful, that kind of power brings a lot of enemies to the forefront. Well, Cortés used this to his advantage, especially since Spain couldn't send more men to help him. He went and found local tribes like the Totonacs and the Tlaxcaltecas, rivals of the Aztec nation, and with their help they truly brought down the empire. But arguably just as important, Cortés had a translator, one who was very loyal to him. She helped them understand the language and customs of the people, thus giving them key insights into what to do next. Even conquerors need help sometimes. Number 1. Speaking Spanish. If you ever wonder why half of South America and many parts of Central and North America all speak Spanish, you can blame the conquistadors for that. Due to their domination of the area, they took out many of the native-speaking tongues that the tribes used and spread not only their religion, but their language as well. This spread throughout the centuries and now is an established part of the Americas. It's not dissimilar to how Alexander the Great paved the world in such a way that many people spoke Greek as its base language. What do you think about the impact of the conquistadors on South America? Let us know in the comments below, and take care.
So as you can see, the Lord said though for Jake to fail, man. Okay? For prophecy had to be fulfilled. All right? And this man, they said they killed 80% of the population of Jake, man. Showing you that, hey, the Lord had Esau in a particular spirit. Now, imagine the times that we're coming into. It said it's going to be the worst time ever. They said the Lord going to put a spirit, like a madman on Esau, sparing none. He had that spirit then. So imagine what he finna do now with the weapon he has now, man. I just thought about that. But let's get a few precepts. We got the night shift tonight, man. But I'm gonna get a few precepts, a couple on the comment board. Yeah, man. But this is why prophecy is written like it's written. Let's get this in Micah first. Okay? These devils, they fulfilled they fulfilled it. One thing about it, the scriptures say none of these shall fail. No brother can put that with Isaiah 34:16. Because Micah 2:1 said, woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hand. Okay? And Esau, remember, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. Okay? And what did he do within his power? Okay? The 1493, papal bull. Okay? The Doctrine of Discovery. Okay? Just a genocide and slaughter. It says, and they covet fields, which is lands, and take them by violence, and houses, and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage, man. They just pulled up and went to terrorizing, man. Okay? It said, therefore, thus said the Lord, behold, against this family do I devise an evil, and this family is Esau Edom. And this the Lord's movie. He does what he wants because he was punishing us. Okay, but he was also setting Esau up for his punishment, man. Okay, and this is the Lord's movie, and this is how he wanted to play out. It said, from which ye shall not remove your necks, neither shall you go haughtily, for this time is evil. Okay, so now Esau is going to have to deal with prophecy being against him. He did his thing when prophecy was with him. Now he's going to have to deal with prophecy being against him, man. Okay, let's get this in Revelation 13 and 9. It says, if any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here's the patience and faith of the saints, man. All right, and the saints of this time is the hopeful elect, man. This is our patience and faith, man. Okay? That the Lord is going to allow righteous judgment to go forth, man. He's going to allow, all right, Israel to get their lick back. Okay? Let's get this here. Jeremiah 30. Okay, and 16. Because we've learned our lesson. The devil still refused to let us go. As the brother put, we'll get that too. He said, therefore, all they that devour thee shall be devoured, and all thy adversaries, every one of them shall go into captivity, and they that spoil thee shall be your spoil, and they that prey upon thee will I give for the prey. Okay, like the saying in the world, the rabbit gonna have the gun, man. Okay, you see, this the time we coming into, man, where the tides is gonna turn drastically, man. And see, that's why us repenting, the hopeful elect repenting plays a major part in what the Lord is getting ready to do in the earth, man. Because now the Lord is going to have mercy on His people, man. Because see, it was about us getting it. That's why, especially as a late man, things just been clicking. Like we get it. Like this captivity taught the elect what they need to know. Okay, it taught us their lesson. Okay, and as we constantly, as righteousness is constantly clicking to us, as we start to thirst for righteousness more, the Lord is finna intervene, man. Okay, so let's get these. All right, this is All right, this is Jeremiah 50:33. It said, "Thus said the Lord," is from the brother Anah out of Memphis, GMS. Look up. Shalom Makiah, Yahabashim Brakatah. It says, "The children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together." Okay, because of eventually, through the French and the British, you had the Southern Kingdom being hauled over here, man. In the books. Okay, it says, "And all that took them captives held them fast; they refused to let them go." Okay, and as you have a remnant that has repented, calling on to our power, the devil refuses to let us go, man. So the Lord's going to come take us by force, man. The same way that they came and took things by force, the Yahushua is going to come take us by force, man. It's Numbers 35 and 33. GMS look up. It says, "So ye shall not pollute the land wherein you are, for blood it defiled the land, and the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it." Okay, Esau was set up for failure, man, because he was on his tear. All right, he didn't consider these things, man. He was going forth, just slaughtering, robbing, just doing what he wanted to do. Okay, he didn't think about this part, man. You see, this is Isaiah 34:16. It says, "Seek you out of the book of the Lord and read. No one of these shall fail, none shall want her mate. For my mouth it hath commanded, and the spirit have gathered them." So, and no prophecy is going to fail. Okay, no prophecy fail when it comes to us. Being slaughtered, being slaves. Okay, no prophecy fail when it comes to us taking the L, man. All right, and it's not gonna fail when it's this man's time. Okay, it's the brother GMS one Hawaii. All right, Ezekiel 25:12 said, "Thus said the Lord power, because the Edom have dealt against the house of Judah by taking vengeance, and have greatly offended and revenged himself upon them." Okay, and you see, it's personal. That's why Esau Edom can't let up. Because in war, man, when someone submits, okay, you're supposed to let up. Okay, when there's no more fighting them, you're supposed to let up. But this devil has never let up, man. He's constantly taking his own vengeance out, all right, on Jacob, man. And it goes back to the birthright, man. Hurt, because it's the elites that pretty much are constantly pushing this constant oppression, all right, of Israel, man, the tribes. It said, "Therefore, thus said the Lord power, I will also stretch out my hand upon Edom, and will cut off man and beast from it, and will make it desolate, all right, from teeming, and day of the Dan shall fall by the sword." Okay, verse 14, "And I will lay my vengeance upon Edom by the hand of my people Israel. And they shall do in Edom according to my anger and according to my fury." Okay, and they shall know my vengeance, said the Lord power. Okay, so just as we felt the wrath, the Most High for our disobedience. Okay, Esau, Edom is going to feel their wrath as well for this great rebellion, man. You know, and for him having no mercy. You see, and this is the time that we in now. So, you know, that's the point. You know, I think point being made. All right. So I just want to go into that part two. Satan being loose from his prison, man. Okay. So the fall of the Ottoman Empire, you know, which they got a series on Netflix. If you brothers are interested in it, you know, going into the Ottoman Empire, pretty good series. You know, me and El Zahar watched the first season. They got a second season. But I started back watching the first season yesterday. Today, you know, and it's good. You know, it's centered around Memoir the second, Mehmet the second, all right, or Mehmet the Conqueror, the one that took down, you know, Constantinople. You know, it's all about, you know, him and Constantine the 11th, you know, which was the last, you know, Byzantine emperor, you know, to rule in Constantinople, you know, before it was taken down. So, you know, it's a pretty good watch. You know, just look up Ottoman Empire on Netflix, and it'll take you to it. It'll be a movie, but then it'll be a series, and then it's a docu-series. You know, so it's extremely informative. You know, if that's your thing, if you're into that. You know, so that's the point. You know, Lord will you brothers. All right, and you few sisters edified. Till next time I say Shalom, Kwam Yashala, Bob, DTA soon, Shalom.